Am I audible, Riddhi?
Yeah, you are audible.
Fine. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Conference 1.0 on emerging role of social entrepreneurship in the era of pandemic. I'm P. Shravan Kumar, the founder and CEO of SK Associates and Group, and your host for today's conference on emerging role of social entrepreneurship in the era of pandemic. I would like to request all the guest speakers as well as the attendees to switch on your webcams and stay on video throughout the conference. I would also like to inform you that Ms. Vaishali Shri and team are conducting opinion polls via the chat box. Kindly actively participate in the same. Now, I would like to quickly introduce our guests for the third session of Conference 1.0. Firstly, I would like to introduce Ms. Maya Fulshrestha, who is the founder and director of Nityam Institute of Performing Arts, New Delhi, and the founder of Anjana Welfare Society, Delhi NCR. She has organized multiple workshops, Surtal festivals, and rhythm dance competitions as part of her journey at Anjana Welfare Society with the support of UNESCO, Ministry of Culture, Government of India, and Sangeet Natak Academy, along with team of artists from across various states of India. Being a passionate Kathak dancer at heart, Ms. Kulshrestha is an exemplary social entrepreneur serving the society for the growth of arts and culture. Next, we have Ms. Shabnam Nida Wazir, who is the founder and CEO of Agam International UK. She has experience in stakeholder management and is focused on global retail supply chain, legal and CSR consultancy, compliance, and corporate governance. She has field experience in qualitative and quantitative research of RMG and TE state workers. She has worked for GeoSansar as the country head and initiated the launch of financial literacy training program for the first time in Bangladesh. She completed her Master's in Science at King's College London with merit, having previously completed LLB and LLM from Bristol Law School, UW. Next, we have Ms. Meenal Madan, who has worked previously as an associate with AZB and Partners Mumbai and Khaitan Sand and Partners Mumbai. She has also worked with BMR Legal as a senior associate in mergers and acquisitions and as a corporate attorney with Shadul Amalchand Mangaldas and Company, Gurgaon. Meenal started SLP Law Firm in March 2020 to provide corporate legal services to multiple stakeholders of the startup ecosystem, including founders, investors, venture capitalists, and incubators. She is very passionate about entrepreneurship and legal advice. Next, we have Mr. C. Rajat Goyal, who is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He is currently practicing in Agra. He has over 14 years of experience in dealing with clients belonging to the finance industry, agro industry, and construction industry. He is also associated as a guest speaker with MSME Department of Government of India. He has also been awarded second prize in the MSME Service Sector category by the State Government of Uttar Pradesh for the year 2020 to 2021. He is continuously engaged in conducting the audit of various limited companies, and in matters related to income tax, company law, tax audits, and other allied activities. He is also senior associate at Miss TaxCard Corporate Professionals LLP, a leading online platform for corporate and legal compliances in India. Next, we have Ms. Winnie Akidi Adile, who is the founder of Detox Series Uganda, an organization that uses digital media, sign language, and advocacy documentaries to amplify youth voices for change. Winnie served as a member of the Youth Advisory Group, YAG, on cross-sectoral programs for the Consortium for Election and Political Process Strengthening. Winnie is also a 2020 recipient of Top 40 Under 40 Africa Youth Leadership Awards. She specializes in advocacy for youth sexual and reproductive health and girls and digital communication systems for activism. Currently, having been elected for the 2020 to 2023 Generation Democracy Global Advisory Board, Winnie now serves as the GMAB Africa Regional Leader for her country. Next, we have Advocate Meenu Pada from Jammu and Kashmir, who is an advocate at the Jammu and Kashmir Bar Association and the Ladakh High Court. She is a member of the Internal Complaint Committee, J&K Bar Association, SMBDU, Karyal Katra member of the Jukesh Committee, and University of Jammu member of the Internal Complaint Committee for the Employees Provident Fund Organization, J&K, and Ladakh High Court. Ms. Meenu Pada is also the president of Jammu and Kashmir National Child and Women Development Council, India. She is the founder of Masti Ki Pathshala and the vice president of Women Empowerment and Child Rights Movement at National Council of News and Broadcasting India. I would again like to request all the attendees and speakers to kindly switch on your webcams and would like to invite my co-host, Advocate Riddhi Bhanushali, to take over. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Advocate Riddhi Bhanushali, the Chief Strategic Alliance Advisor of SK Associates and Group, and Shravan's co-host for the day. I would like to request all the attendees to switch on your webcams during the conference. Now I would like to invite Ms. Maya Kulshetra for his speech.
Riddhi, excuse me. Ms. Maya Kulshrestha has not joined the conference yet. I hope we can call Mr. Rajat Goel until then.
Okay, fine. Now, I would like to request C.A. Rajat Goel from Agra chapter of CIRC of ICAI to commence his speech.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Am I audible now? Yes, thanks. Good evening, everyone. Myself, C.A. Rajat Goyal, a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. My all fellow colleagues during the three sessions had already covered most of the points regarding role of social entrepreneurship in the era of this pandemic. I will add few more words to it. What is social entrepreneurship? Social entrepreneurs actively seek opportunities to innovate and create positive impact in their societies. Social entrepreneurs try to add value to people's lives by pursuing a social mission. The COVID-19 pandemic has raised new threats and problems for society. Social entrepreneurs have been working to resolve business failures and show more long-term models for creating sustainable economies. Social enterprises are the inclusive sustainable organization that aims to address societal and environmental problems using innovative products or services. However, these enterprises may face different challenges than that of commercial enterprises. This is because, unlike commercial enterprises, these works on double mission, that is social return on investment as well as financial return on investment. There have been a number of studies on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic in commercial enterprises, but limited studies on social enterprises. This paper explores emerging role of social entrepreneurs and challenges faced by social entrepreneurs during COVID-19 outbreaks. The finding reveals that COVID-19 has resulted increased level of activities by social entrepreneurs to fight against challenges emerged out of global pandemic. The swiftness and efficiency with which the social entrepreneurs have responded to COVID-19 pandemic in India and its impact made one thing clear, that their on-the-ground presence and ability to act as a first responder in support of vulnerable communities are incredibly important to global COVID-19 response efforts. Now I want to present some PowerPoint presentation. Mm, wait. Yes. How social enterprises are working to save lives during this devastating time in India. By way of few examples, providing resources to the most vulnerable, helping women in the informal economy, providing resources to migrants, providing healthcare to people in remote areas, and supporting migrant families, survivor of sexual violence and frontline workers, providing relief including food packages, masks and PPE kits. Now I would like to explain one by one all the six. Providing resources to the most vulnerable. An NGO based in New Delhi, India, which undertakes disaster relief, humanitarian aid, and community development in parts of 23 states across India. During the crisis, these social enterprises had already worked with more than 400 partner organizations to extend its reach in both rural and urban areas. It has distributed more than 8,800 tons of rations, other essential items, provided more than 3,62,000 meals, sourced 2,25,000 kgs of vegetables from farmers, reached out more than about 1.5 million people, and produced more than 8 lakh face masks and more than 12 lakh sanitary pads, helping women in the informal economy. In India, there are 500 million people, poor people, and vulnerable informal workers who are daily wage workers. These include contractual workers, casual workers, construction workers, home based workers, street vendors, waste recyclers, hand cart puller, auto rickshaw driver, and many more, who are struggling daily to meet their minimum basic necessities through their daily labor. The pandemic badly hit their daily earning and therefore income to sustain themselves. These social enterprises provide support to self-employed women and also urge to government to declare income support to all the families of the informal economy workers to tide over this crisis and provide a free distribution system of for ration supply as long as the crisis lasts and offer 6 months amortization of repayment of all loans. The next one is providing resources to migrants. India witnessed a large exodus of migrant workers from cities as the COVID-19 lockdown commenced. These social enterprises has been intensively involved in providing relief to standard migrant workers, daily wagers, and their households to see them through this period of distress. Relief included emergency food distribution, cash transfers, health care, and they also provided travel assistance to migrants attempting to return home. For those migrants who come back to their villages, the organization played an active role in facilitating their linkages to social security schemes and benefits. Providing the next one is providing healthcare to people in remote areas. In response to the vast need for healthcare services in India, especially in rural areas, where more than 28 million people living in remote and unserved areas are estimated not to have access to affordable and accountable healthcare services. These social enterprises launched a free telemedicine consultation for COVID-19 screenings. This can be accessed from both from phone line as well as from website and apps. The goal is to prevent panic, ensure correct screening, triage, treatment before conditions become too serious, and prevent the health infrastructure from collapsing. The next one is supporting migrant family and survivor of sexual violence and frontline workers. These social enterprises, with its experience working with migrant workers, construction laborers, and daily wage workers over the years, proactively formulated a multi-pronged approach to support the workers in meeting their immediate needs as well as to prevent them from the long-term implication of economic crisis. Providing relief, including food packages, masks, and PPE kits. During the COVID-19 crisis, these social enterprises has been working non-stop to provide relief, including providing food packages, masks, and PPE kits. These also partners with the district government to build a COVID-19 hospital by refurbishing an old unused rural hospital and turning it into a free dedicated COVID-19 hospital, and also been working with the district administration 24 by 7 to provide oxygen bed, ventilator, life-saving drugs, and critical stage life-saving drugs to the critical stage patients. That's all. I think so. Most of the point I have covered in it. Thank you. Thank you. That's all my presentation itself.
That was a really amazing speech, Mr. Jadwal, as well as your presentation on social entrepreneurship were quite informative. I just have one question. NGOs keep working for like social causes. They do develop the society a lot. But at the same point of time, since you are an auditor too, don't these NGOs get any provisions from the government for like practicing social entrepreneurship and developing the like society?
Yes, yes. Government are forming provision and also providing facilities to the social entrepreneurs so that they become more viable and to reach to the poor end section of society, vulnerable section of the society, so that they become more powerful and sustain themselves during this crisis if it become come near in the near future.
Okay. So we have heard a lot about tax shields. So you could just explain that would tax shields be applicable to NGOs and social enterprises?
Governments are providing relief to, in taxes to the NGOs and social entrepreneurs so that uh, they can come move more forward in providing services, social services to the society and the vulnerable people. Tax reliefs are providing by the government. The government are taking much more of the steps in giving such reliefs to such tax burdens and tax holidays to the social enterprises and also motivating people.
Definitely, that's a good thing out there. So just the last question, I'm just like
Yes, yes, sure, sure, sure.
so when you're like these enterprises are given tax shields by the government for like stabilizing them and keeping them secured in the longer run, definitely because they are serving the society and for a good cause. In the same way, are they also given any like leases or any like a freehold on audits, or are the audit processes for social enterprises as well as normal startup the same?
No, no, no. These enterprises are also given some special type of relief from audits also. Government are
Like
also
audits are
formulating
not
some type of
compulsory for
policies.
social enterprises.
Actually, I can't hear your questions. I can't hear your questions.
Audits are compulsory for NGOs and social
Yes, yes.
enterprises.
Audit are compulsory for NGOs.
Okay, so like the frequency of the audits would definitely be less.
Frequency of the audit are similar to that of non-profit organization and profit-making organization.
Then
So that
how is the government exactly
everything
like
will
giving them
become
a
will be in for will be in as per the government rules and regulations.
okay,
Tax holidays are given and tax rebate are also provided to the social entrepreneurs so that they will provide more and more facility or uh, do more work for the societies for the vulnerable people, needy persons, as we have already seen in this pandemic.
okay. So again, coming back to social enterprises, since you have audited multiple NGOs, could you just explain us like two or three examples of some cases where you have seen NGOs serving the society? Some of the business models, like which way they serve the society. Riddhi, is Mr. Goyal in the meeting still?
No, actually, due to some
Okay,
network
I
issue.
guess there must be network issue. No issues. Uh, I would like to request Ms. Vaishali.
Shravan, Shravan, just want to add one thing while Rajat will join back. In fact, for NGO organizations, there could be more scrutinies available because a lot of people do kind of fund, transfers and other aspects on that. So there is a lot of, strong, I would say, the control or compliances which are there in the social organization. So it will not be less. In fact, it is much more than a normal organization at times.
Point actually. Okay, so until Mr. Rajat Goyal again joins us, Riddhi, if you could just call the next speaker.
Yeah, sure. I would like to thank CA Rajat Goyal for his intellectual and informative speech. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Winnie Akiri, the founder of We Talk series from Uganda, to commence her speech.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, then. Yeah, I'll apologize immediately because of the noise background because I'm on the move, so I had to step in and find somewhere to have this call from. Otherwise, I appreciate being hosted in here and I thank everyone who's here. So, as earlier introduced, my name is Winnie Akidi Adile and the founder of Resources Uganda, an organization that uses digital media and advocacy documentaries to advocate for the plight of the young people in the country and then globally. So the rest is in my profile, but then straight to what our topic today is around the role of social entrepreneurs in this era of the pandemic is basically is what I'll share in line with what we are doing as we Series Uganda. So in the era of COVID-19, as we saw Series Uganda, we decided to start up a project called the Youth Jam that brings 150 to 300 young people to a monthly meetup parliament that helps us debunk on key topical issues that are affecting the young people. Because if you realize during the COVID era, very many people went into so much isolation, then with the fear of the number of deaths that are rising up, there's a lot of depression that came up and mental health issues that came up. And to top it up, the concept of inclusivity. You realize that most of the COVID information that are being circulated were not inclusive enough. Inclusive enough, I mean that they were not being relayed in sign language, they were not being relayed in braille, and it was mostly visual media that was being used, visualization that was being passed in the different media houses that if you would actually observe globally in the different houses. So as we talk series together, we decided what can we do to incorporate this particular group and community of young people with disabilities for them to have this information at the tip of their hands and also for them to feel involved in this era of COVID, to see how best they can reach out to people in their communities as well as contribute to the change in the communities that we're living in. So that's how we started up the Youth Jam, where we bring these young people and then bring different key stakeholders to come and interface with these young people where we would share these ideas, then share around policies and see how best the young people in their respective communities would engage in the policy conversations. So so in that two aspect, we were able to reach out to up to 5,000 young people during the era of COVID, and that gave birth to the introduction of the Sign for Health campaign, which was inclusive that and being led by young people. So in this aspect, I would say the role of the young people in this era is to strategize and see how best we can utilize the resources that are close to us. Now, the resources close to us, given the digital age that we are living in right now, very many of us as young people are so much using social media. You can realize that also the convening of this meeting, we're using a digital media approach. We have all, we're all in this meeting connecting from different parts of the world, from different continents, and we're able to come together and debunk on these key topical issues and find solutions to the challenges that we're going through. And that is the same issue that I would gladly say that as young people, as social entrepreneurs, as mothers, as families, as lawyers, as relatives out there, we can use social media, our youth at the advantage of using our phones to effect change in the communities we have because you don't really need to wait for the resources out there for you to effect change. You don't really need to sit and wait for funding because I believe already society these days has the perception that you need to get a funding, you need to get a grant from, let's say, USAID, you need to get a grant from a government entity for you to be able to start or effect change in your communities. But then, given the plight of a young person, you know, right now the world and the young people at large are crippling with a lot of unemployment issues. But then, how can you break this bias around unemployment while at the same time you're impacting the communities you're in, while at the same time you're mentoring the peers that are in your circles? So with this, you can decide to maximize the resource you have, which at this point is your phone, and try to come up with information, try to come up with information and like maybe organize such conversations and see how best you can reach out to the people. And that is something that has really worked a lot for us as Witch of Series Uganda because this is an initiative that just started through the use of a mobile phone, using a mobile phone to stream live the conversations that we would sit and discuss in a restaurant, in a school setting, because as I earlier said, Intro Series was birthed in a university setting where we would meet up every weekend and just live stream the conversation we have. we were having. And that is the same approach I'd really advise the young people, especially those who are trying to take on the path and the dynamics of social entrepreneurship and seeing how they can impact their communities, for you to utilize the resource. Now, in utilizing the resources that we have, I would also strongly urge the young people in this network, the young people in this call, for you to synergize on the networks. Today that we have come together to be part of this call, I know most of us haven't met each other before. I myself am also meeting most of you today for the first time, but then that doesn't mean that the fact that we've never met before, it doesn't mean that you cannot build on the network I have and I cannot tap in the network you have. We are here to help and impact and change the world, but you cannot do that unless we come together, synergize and learn from each other's perspectives, learn and be open enough to learn from what the other person is doing, because from the previous generation, our parents collectively worked together, and that is how they were able to build the nations that we are living in right now. But then it's now time for we, the current generation, to see how best we can synergize. And already the evolvement of digital media is already making it easier for us as young people. But then the fact is, what positive approach are you going to use digital media to impact change? Leave this whole aspect of, I know right now, so many young people are caught up out there to use social media to slay, to use social media to maybe con people online, but then how best are you using social media to impact the lives around you? You've already seen how very many young people are right now committing suicide online just because something has gone wrong, and then someone posts something on social media. But then if you're quick enough to maybe read that statement and maybe reach out to that particular person, you may be able to have a conversation with that person and change their mindset from them not doing that. So the whole thing is, what is the power of social media that we're using as young people, and how best can we synergize and use these platforms that we are having, because everything has changed right now and it's upon us to help and change the communities that we are living in, because if we don't do it now, then no one will, and there's no way you're going to change the whole world. That's why how the saying comes, you cannot change the world alone, but you can change the world by changing one person who's going to build on another network to go and change the rest. So it all goes back to us as young people. How are you going to use the social media? Because that is the quickest platform that we have now, and we should stop crying this whole aspect of we are unemployed, there are no jobs, there are no scholarships. You will not get those scholarships, you will not get those jobs unless you start off something right now by utilizing the platforms you have. Because already, as you can see, most of these jobs that we apply for, be it in the jurisdictions of our countries, within the region, or within the national entity of our countries, be it globally, most of these jobs usually ask for the reference to your social media platforms. I personally, I wouldn't be here if one of the people on this call didn't observe the work I was doing on social media. So it all goes back to the kind of network you build on the social media for you to be able to effect change and also be able to effect your social entrepreneurship aspect in your life, but at the same time you're earning, but at the same time you're impacting the communities you're from. So that's all I'll share with you today, and I'm really honored to have this conversation with you all. Thank you.
I would like to thank Wendy for her beautiful speech. The way you elaborated the various ways how social media can be used is actually something which no speaker has covered up till now. However, I had some questions again here. Since you said that social media could promote good things as well as bad. So how do you think the suicide example that you gave, can we stop using social media itself?
Come again, I didn't get you well.
You mentioned in one of your examples that multiple people are suiciding because something wrong has been posted on social media at some point of time. So how can this be stopped by using social media as a tool?
So young people can use, if I get you right, your question is around what young people can use social media for? Yeah, so people can use social media right straight away from them using it to create content that's not harmful to the people around them, content that's not harmful to people online. Now in this, I'll just share an example of how me as it started before I even effected We Talk Series Uganda. As me, I took keen interest on sexual harassment in the community I came from. And this is something that I started having conversations around, and then also conversations around teenage pregnancy. So I started generating content in that aspect, and I would use my platform as Winnie Adile on Facebook, and I would use my platform to write about that. I would use my platform to publish stories of or news articles that have been published in that aspect. And in that aspect, very many young people started taking interest, and then we came together and started doing this. So as I said, you can come up with different ways of how you can build your content. For example, right now, very many people are using TikTok, but most majority, 80% of the people using TikTok right now are misusing it. The content being shared on TikTok is not educative, is not supportive, is not growing for everyone. But then it depends on how you use it, how you decide to use that particular platform to grow the others. So no one really has to come to you and tell you you need to do this. It just needs to come from you, your mindset. What is the vision you have for your country? What is the vision you have for your community? Because you can't do all this if you don't have the vision. You can't do all this if you don't have the passion. It's like taking a goat to the well to drink water, but then you have to force the dog or the goat to take the water. So literally, it just comes back to you. You can't do all this unless you have the passion to do this all. So just generate the content yourself, but then make sure you have fast finding, because we are also trying to disencounter misinformation because of the different kinds of fake news, fake information that is actually thrown online.
That was actually an amazing solution again. Vinny, just second question.
Yeah.
Could you tell us something about We Talks Uganda? Like we are new to it. If you could just give us a brief idea of your vision towards the society.
I didn't hear you. My network is breaking. Could you repeat?
Could you please give us an idea of your organization, We Talks Uganda? What was your vision when you started your organization? Because that would definitely motivate and inspire multiple students for it conference.
Okay, thank you. So, Wito Series Uganda was birthed from the whole idea of giving young people a platform to be able to speak about the issues happening in their communities and in their countries. And in the beginning, when I was in university, there was a lot of sexual harassment happening in universities. There were a lot of rape, defilements that were happening in my communities. So I decided, why don't we come together as a group of young people and birth this organization that's called We Talk Series Uganda. So that is how We Talk Series Uganda, an organization that uses digital media because of the whole involvement of digital media, how the majority of the youths are using digital media. So that's why the concept of digital media approach was incorporated in the organization. So it's all about using digital media and sign language for it to be inclusive enough, and advocacy documentaries, because advocacy documentaries brings on the whole aspect and concept of evidence-based advocacy, because there's no way you can speak about issues happening in your community without having evidence to back it up. Because I know however much national reports come up, sometimes national reports and TV reports do not conceal, like do not bring out the whole issues that are happening in the community. Sometimes these issues are left out because of maybe some of them are happening in the deep rural. So that's where the whole aspect of advocacy documentary comes in. So it's an organization that uses digital media, advocacy documentaries, and sign language to advocate for the sexual reproductive health rights of young people, as well as mentor young people into leadership roles from high school to university levels. So our vision is basically to create a linkage of young people who are universally creating conversations and building dialogues around social change issues that are happening in our communities. And our social change issues are around depression, mental health, leadership, HIV/AIDS prevention, and then defilement. And then recently we incorporated the aspect of menstrual health management, because I believe in the context of the community I come with, and I also know in the context of the Indian communities, menstruation is a very big taboo given the rural communities that we come from. You're not allowed to speak about this. Sometimes most of the girls drop out of school because of menstrual health, because they can't maybe afford sanitary pad usage, maybe because they're in their menses and they can't be like show up in the school. Like maybe when it comes to the Muslim religion, once a girl is in her menstruation, she's not allowed to mix up with people in the mosque. So the whole aspect is, how can we break the barriers and the myths around this, as at the same time we are creating these platforms for the young people to be able to speak out, because holistically, globally, young people are seen as the issue, as the biggest problem to the world, because of our population, because of how much we have taken up the internet. But then we as Vital Series Uganda are trying to change the perception. We are trying to change the dynamics by showing that as young people, however much we are unemployed, we are graduates and we have professional skills that we can come together and synergize and see how best we can give back to our communities and create impact, as well as seeing how best we can utilize our social platforms to effect change and give positive impact in our communities as we mentor the peers, because some of us were privileged enough to be mentored by our parents. Some of us were privileged enough to be mentored by going into institutions and planning, but then what next for the young people who are in the communities, who haven't been able to come to the city center? What next for those who haven't gone to the universities? What next for the teenage mothers who've dropped out of school? So we are all changing the dynamics we talk series Uganda by creating that accountability platform where we cease to only hold the government accountable, but then we hold ourselves as young people accountable for the decision and the choices that we make in the communities we are in.
That's actually a great initiative, Vinny. Congratulations for actually
Thank
starting
you.
it. And I
Thank,
wish you the best of luck for your startup. Definitely. Now I
thank
would like
you.
to invite, yeah, now I would like to invite my co-host. Riddhi, if you have any questions for our speakers, Mr. Goyal as well as Vinny, both of them.
Yeah, sure. So my question was, social media is being a boom right now. Like we can
Riddhi, if you
see.
could be a just bit loud for you.
I
Hello.
can't hear you.
Am I clear? Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was telling that social media is a boom right now. Okay. So due to COVID, people have come to know the originality of social media, how social media is useful to us. But what
Yeah.
about the either part of the social media? What about the negative part of the social media? Has it been affected due to has it been affected due to COVID? After COVID come, has the negative part of social media been increased?
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for that question. So, like, the whole positive aspect of social media was really great and everything, but then when COVID hit, it became so hard, given the fact that most of the young people lost their jobs, most of cause, and then also in Mississippi, Uganda, majority of the young people who work with us work with other organizations, and most of them were laid off from work because Mississippi, Uganda is entirely voluntary. So you realize that most of them were laid off from work and they no longer had the job or any source of money for them to be able to buy data because internet data is so expensive here. And then the fact that given the elections that were happening, most of our social media platforms were censored during election time. So for you to be able to access Facebook in Uganda, you have to have VPN. And this came at a point where elections were happening during COVID-19. And then going through COVID-19, you had to ensure that you have VPN to access this on top of the high prices of data. So that is something that really affected us a lot. But then, as I earlier on said, when the passion is there, you look for all ways to synergize and come together to effect change. But then, if I'm to speak about the young people outside there, I believe during COVID-19, very many people seek solace on social media, given the fact that very many were not allowed to meet in person physically. Very many people took a lot of time to meet, like through Zoom calls, through Google Meet, through Facebook Live, through Facebook Rooms. People were meeting on social media, and that was in a way helping to counteract change. And if you to look at some of the statistics, majority of people were actually finding out most of their relatives, most of their colleagues were actually down with depression, and through reaching out to them on social media, many were actually able to save most of their relatives, and also through some digital games that people would incorporate in those social media rooms. So in some way or the other, COVID-19 really affected social media usage, and as I can say right now, very many people are suicidal, very many people are having depression, but then we say the fight doesn't stop. As young people, it is up to us to fight and counteract all this negativity because everything has a negative aspect. Even eating food is positive, but then it has a negative aspect.
Yeah.
Some people will say, I can't use a bus, I need to use a train because they feel like a bus is good, but then it has a negative thing. Everything in life has a positive and a negative, but then it's up to us to ensure we maximize usage of the positivity that everything we use brings up. So all I can say right now is for Uganda, the social media usage is not that really booming, but we are trying as young people because it's the only way we can effect advocacy and reach out to majority. Unlike for the young people, like for example, for the people on the platform here who are outside there, you're able to access social media very well, and then you're able to convene, have these kinds of convenings. And this is something that is really impactful because I am here speaking to majority of young people from India right now, and this is something that is being impactful. So it doesn't mean that me using social media, I can only empower the people in Uganda. No, it gives me an opportunity to travel further than Uganda to impact someone else in another community. Like for example, right now I'm speaking to people in India, but I'm not in India, and this is already a positive impact. The young people there are able to learn from me without actually me being there in person, and I can organize such and also they learn from me.
Hello.
I guess Winnie, you got stuck, or has this been ended?
Due to some network issues.
Just a minute.
Sorry about that, my
Winnie?
internet dropped.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
my internet dropped. Yeah, but that's all I can really say. So everything has a negative aspect, but then it's upon us to see how we can maximize our usage and create positive impact. Thank you.
Winnie, one more question for you. Sorry, I'm taking a lot of time of yours.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So when talking about social entrepreneurship, in the COVID era, where person who was not able to meet a person, people were not able to meet each other, where people were
Yeah,
afraid. Even meeting someone can get me COVID. I can be affected by the terms of him or her. So, has
yeah.
this not affected the social entrepreneurship and the social environment all over? I think so. It has affected a lot because people were not able to socialize with each other. They were not able to meet because the connect
Yeah,
which person to person has is not to be felt while connecting through social media or a digital
true.
platform. So, what is your opinion on that?
My opinion is like 50-50 because if you to see majority, like most of the young people who are actually maximizing their entrepreneurship skills like businesses physically because of COVID all turned and went into online social entrepreneurship where they were marketing their produce online, looking for clients and customers online. So one thing I would give credit to COVID-19 is the fact that it pushed very many young people to not only think out of the box that they can only work physically, but then they can also evolve their businesses online, and that could actually maximize also their outreach of clients and customers. So that is my 50% goal for social media and for entrepreneurs. But on the other hand, it has really affected the kind of social entrepreneurs who need to physically meet their clients and their customers. And that takes us back to like maybe for us, like us who are meeting here in terms of we are lawyers, some of us are lawyers, some of us are community advocates, some of us are children advocates, and some of the issues around this, we need to meet our clients in person. And with the COVID era, this really affected it because it also affected the level of our networking because some of the work we do, some of the opportunities we get in this kind of sphere is through the physical networking, and that's really affected. But then, as I can say, right now in the post-COVID and post-pandemic era, people are trying to catch up, but how best can you catch up right now by actually now starting to publicize the works you're doing online? I've seen a couple of lawyers started promoting their works online. I've seen a couple of advocates who are doing physically who are now encouraging and actually taking on physical advocacy and online advocacy. Some lawyers are actually now publishing their works online. A case in scenario, I would say, like, for example, there's something that happened during COVID and someone was arrested. And that is a case that was going through during COVID. But then, out of nowhere, we got feedback around this recently, and this was posted online. So I must say it's a 50-50. There is a negative aspect if your business could not only be taken online, but then for those whose businesses could do both online and physical, it didn't really affect them that much. But then it just gave us the whole aspect of how best can we think out of the box in order to thrive through any next, maybe let's say for example, if another COVID comes or another virus comes in, we will be well set enough to see how best our businesses and our professions can thrive in such a pandemic situation.
That's an intellectual answer. Vinay. Now, I would like to invite all the audience to put forward their questions to Mr. Goyal as well as Ms. Vinny, if you have any.
Shravan, I want to address one more question. Is it okay?
Just a minute, Prithvi. We are running out of time. We have two speakers on the panel still.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Jyotika, Irate, Kakkan, Kanishka, Neenal, Priyanshu, Mr. Anshu Jain, Sonal. Any questions down here for our speakers? Okay. Priyanshu, no questions?
Uh, Sorry, can I ask one question? Sorry, I was unmuting myself. So, Devi, I have this question from India. So, a lot of things I see that Africa is facing a lot of challenges with respect to poverty, with respect to hunger, and these other social economic issues. How is that being handled out there, and what is the situation in terms of the mindset of the youth and children out there? And what are the leaders kind of working towards that on the same? Because the people like you are working so much, but I know it has to be supported by the government, by the external people, as well as we need to focus upon the children and the youth of the country for that matter.
Thank you very much, Ansha, for that question. So basically, it's a very big issue. Actually, whenever someone sees someone from Africa, they just look at you and like you're struggling with this. And yeah, it is true. But then, as Eleron said, this has really caused very many young people to rise up because they're tired of these injustices, because we can no longer rely on our government. Because most times our governments already have fixed budgets and they're not willing enough to maybe put aside budget for the young people to wake up. That's why you realize right now very many African young people are now getting into networks of young people outside there to see how best they can synergize and work together. Because this is just whole a learning concept for us as young people, because we can't no longer rely on our governments. But then, just as we said, and we can't rely on them, but then we can't continue blaming them. The blame game will continue as long as we keep looking up to them for them to actually come up with solutions in this aspect. But then the thing comes back to us as the young people in Africa. Now, as me, Winnie Akidi, I am now the Africa representative to the Generation Democracy Global Advisory Board. And my work in this board is to design activities, engagements that will be implemented across Africa for young people in leadership and democracy. And this, I am doing it by working closely with young people in the different African countries to see how best we can design projects that we can work and implement as young people without relying on our governments, but then just reaching out to them for support and assistance. Because I know as young people, we may not be knowing everything, but it doesn't mean we are not open to learn from our elders and our leaders. And in this case, our elders and leaders are our government. So most of these projects, we partner with our governments, we partner with the states, we partner with different organizations that are on ground, and that is the best way we can work together. And this takes you back to the power of supporting collaboration and networking, because we cannot do all this unless we support each other, unless we collaborate, unless we learn and implement what the others are doing. Sometimes people may call it copying what someone else is doing, but then if you're copying or replicating what another is doing for the good, as long as you have information from them and you're using it for a positive impact, that is good. And given that right now the fact that people are doing similar things globally, but then how best are we as young people in Africa learning from you people in India, young people in India, young people from maybe in Southern America? How are we learning from you, and how are you learning? Because I know however much we have issues, there are certain things that we are implementing very well, and I believe a young person from India would actually maybe benefit and learn from us and go implement back there. So as young people, we don't really have much of the resources, but we're utilizing the little we have, and that is the power of social media and digital media and the power of supportive collaboration and networking. And that is how we are managing to try and change the perspective around some of these issues that we are facing in our country. In our countries in Africa. I hope I've explained it.
Sure, Vinny. I think I will want to connect with you offline on that. We are working in improving the employability enhancement and developing entrepreneurial mindset among children and youth in our country, India. I would like to work with you if there is a possibility to collaborate and see how we could support the Uganda or maybe other African countries out there. So, if you could connect offline on that, I would want to really discuss the detailed plan on the same.
It's alright. Shravan will share my email with anyone who wants to get in touch and learn from the works we are doing and maybe partner. And also, in case there are any other questions, I'm welcome to it. So otherwise, I'm requesting, if there are no more questions, I'm requesting to get back on board because I'm heading to the field.
And you might drop your email ID as well as Rajat in the chat box so that in case anyone has any more queries, they can contact. Okay.
All right.
So, Vriddhi, if you can call the next speaker, please.
Yeah. I would like to thank Winnie for her amazing speech, and further would like to invite Advocate Meenal Madan, founder of SLAP, for her amazing speech.
Hi, Riddhi. Thank you. Hi, Shravan. Hi, everyone. Very good evening. And what I basically work on is, helping the startup environment, the founders, the promoters in India to help them understand how they can, have a successful foundation to take their business forward. And the clients that we work with or the projects that I work with are not only limited to normal enterprises, but also include social enterprises, social entrepreneurs, and so on and so forth. And what I would like to discuss here today is how COVID has impacted entrepreneurship in India, the examples that I have seen or the issues that I have personally helped with. And towards the second part of my conversation, I would like to sort of give you an idea as to how entrepreneurs who are looking to go into the field of social entrepreneurship can use this information to bring up their own ideas or their own, cooperatives that they may have, and how they can take it forward. So the first part that I would like to start about is from the small issues that I faced or I saw that some of the clients had or some of the family members had, was a very simple issue of access of funds. Now, what do you do if, let's say, in an organization or in a family, there is one person who has access to funds, or if there is no nominee attached? Because generally how things work is, for everyone, is that you need to access the money through a bank account. And for a bank account, you need approvals. Now, because people were not well or because people were not available, what happened was that a lot of legal issues like nominees not being available became a bigger issue because people could not access funds. This was true for companies, this was true for families, and this was true for everyone else. Another issue that happened was that the documents within the company, within a family, were not completely formulated in a manner that they could have been used. So, for example, if a person is not available, is there a second person in a company or an enterprise that is available for co-signing or co-authorizing? These small issues became such a problem that even if the problem was small, simply because they could not access funds, they could not even think of starting giving solutions for the bigger problems out there. So the one thing that I would like to share here is that if you have any company structure, any cooperative trust structure, even in a family, please always make sure that to be able to access funds, you have a nominee in place, or you have a joint account, or you have authorizations that you've shared with other trusted members. But if that is not there, you should definitely have a power of attorney that can be exercised in such situations, because in such there's nothing limiting a power of attorney to only be exercised throughout. They can be specific for certain times or certain events or certain durations when they can be active. So if these small solutions which are available very easily are applied, the bigger problems are much easy to tackle. Now, the second part that I would like to go for, which was faced by a lot of businesses, and we have a lot of people who are, in social enterprises, funds become a major issue. Getting people to be sincere about the cause, being sincere about, the role they are in becomes one of the major issues. So there are multiple ways that we have helped startups or social enterprises or social entrepreneurs with it. One example that I would like to quote here that we have also dealt with as a client is keto organization, where you can actually have a lot of traction pull towards a cause, and you can also get third parties, unknown parties, to pitch in funds for you if funds are required. And if you see, there's a complete structure to how the website works. And the reason it works is because of a lot of things have been done right. And there are also a lot of lawyers, including us out there, who have worked with companies, entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, who have a limited budget. We are not asking for them to have the same budget as the companies or bigger, venture capitalists out there, but we do impart the same information. We do give the same work to them, even though their costs are limited. And it is because of this reason that, we are okay working with lesser costs also. And this is not limited to just our organization. This is actually a lot of help that is out there. It's just a matter of, the right people connecting with the right resources. And the second issue that I also saw was in medical equipment. With COVID, a lot of effort was made in medical equipment, but with the speed that it was required, the feedback that came back was that the medical equipment or the medical enterprises that have supply demands were not fulfilled in a very eco-friendly manner. Now, during a pandemic, while I understand that a focus cannot be on sustainability, but somewhere the issues also came out to be as facts that sustainability was an option which was available. It's sometimes just not the first thought that occurs. So these simple issues, were dealt with the post-COVID era, when there were questions asked by the hospitals or by the associations as to how is this, product going to survive in the long term. So now I'm going to start with a little bit of my presentation, which was, part 2 of my discussion, where I would like to share with you as a lawyer what all things are there out there that you can use to, sort of help establish a business or a sort of enterprise, a social enterprise for yourself. Just give me a minute to share the presentation. Is the presentation visible?
Yes.
Thank you. So what I wanted to sort of share in this presentation was, first I would wanted to discuss what is the role of a social entrepreneur and what we have learned from this era of pandemic. And I wanted to discuss what are the sort of differences that makes it look difficult, or what are the challenges. So what I wanted to sort of discuss here was that what are the differences. So technically, if you see from a legal perspective, there are not a lot of differences, in the sense that there needs to be recognition by the government. There needs to be a separate entity, which can be a company or which can be a cooperative society or even a trust, for the idea to go forward. And here, both the situation, a normal company versus, let's say, a social cause, both will need a business model. But what the difference comes out to be is that for a normal company, the profit is what is their main goal. However, for a social entrepreneurship, the profit is to understand what is the community problem or the bigger issue that the company or the enterprise is trying to solve. In such situations, is profit always not taken into account? Or if profit is not taken into account, then how do these enterprises grow and how do these enterprises go ahead? So to understand that, I would like to give a basic understanding of what are the kinds of legal organizations available and what are the different ways that can be used. So let's say, for example, if you are starting with a Section 8 company, how is it different from a trust? How is it different from a cooperative? So this is what I will be explaining. So if there is any social cause or if there is any cause that is adding to the arts, culture, or the general benefit of the society, as per the Companies Act, a special Section 8 company can be opened up. Now, this company has a lot of corporate benefits. Now, let me start with something very simple in the startup legal world that I work in. That if you are a Section 8 company and if you are registered with the Startup India, the advantage you get from the government is very different from the advantage you will be getting if you are not registered as a Section 8 company versus if you are registered as a normal company. And what happens is that accordingly, the government understands that you want to work on social causes. And because the companies that are registered as Section 8 companies are any which ways less, somehow the competition for government grants is actually less for non-profit organization or social entrepreneurship versus a normal company. Now, let's say if there's a charitable organization. A charitable organization can be registered under the Indian Trusts Act of 1882. Now, why can this be done? And why is there a requirement? The reason there is a requirement for this is because in a company, you generally need a promoter or a founder or a director to lead the company. You need a management in place and you need a lot of other checks and balances which only apply if you are registered as a company. Those checks and balances which will not apply if you are registered, let's say, as a trust or a cooperative or even a partnership for that matter. So a charitable organization is different because in a trust act, what you're basically doing is you're placing trust on certain people to take care of a larger sum of money or a larger social cause. And the trust is what drives the company. The trust is what drives the trust. Versus in a company, what drives the company can be the balance sheet to sustain it. However, in a trust, it is mostly much more on a basis where no one is putting funds in one company, but everyone is contributing an amount if they're comfortable with it. And a trust is made with a very specific goal. Let me give you an example for that. You will not see a non-profit company registered and let's say providing free water drinking facilities at popular places. But you would have seen a lot of places that provide water facility available for the public would have a small inscription somewhere there with the name of a trust. So that is the difference that the organization has versus what is it trying to achieve. As our last speaker very correctly said, what is the goal? What is it that we are looking for? And what is the vision out there? Because if that vision is already out there, then it becomes much easier as to how do you want to incorporate it. Now, if you are a non-profit or a cooperative or a community project, you can still get a registration. It may be a simple registration by a panchayat. It can also be a separate registration on a bigger basis, as I said, under the Trusts Act. So now coming to the smaller panchayat recognition, which I think not a lot of people may or may not be aware of. Now what happens is that if a project is very specific to a small area or a small territory and is not at a, let's say, state level or a national level or even an international level, then the kind of recognition they want is from the local authority. And the local authority that comes into place at that time is your panchayat. Now that is not equivalent to a government recognizing you, but it is equivalent to the local body or the local authority of that place recognizing you. So the recognition is different, yes, but it also depends on how you have devised that entire structure and what do you intend to align it with. And the last topic that I would like to sort of take and to understand is, can social enterprises get foreign funding, or how can they get funding in India? Now, as I had said earlier, if you are registered as a company or as an LLP, including a Section 8 company, you can get funding in India. However, the business model should be self-sufficient. What I mean here is that if once the company has got certain funds, once the company has started its business, it needs to have a model where if it is providing a service or a product, it should charge a bare minimum price so that it can sustain in providing that service. However, in a profit model, what happens is that you are not just charging a base price, you're charging a price plus profit plus tax plus XYZ costs. Because those factors are all taken away, the cost becomes very less, which is mostly payable by most people. If not all people, I'm saying most people here. And I'm referring to very small amounts of, let's say, 5 rupees, 10 rupees. So if we have these kind of structures, the structure becomes so self-sufficient in itself that the company becomes a model where it will keep on providing till it crosses a time period where it will need to refresh the same system. This considering model is a little different from how organizations which are registered as trusts or cooperatives work, is why funding can also be provided. Again, there are two modes of funding in this. One mode is if the founders are investing their time or their expertise. That is also considered funding, not in monetary terms, but in terms of what is it that the person is bringing on board. And it is a very popular model. And there are a lot of people who have, taken advisory roles on such non-profits to provide their expertise without actually charging anything back. And in the same way, there are a lot of people who have been affected by a lot of social causes which is close to them at home, which is why we see donations and fundings across the world in so many ways. And those same people, I have also funded entrepreneurs, founders, companies which have had a model which can sustain long and provide a service that is for a bigger social cause out there. Thank you.
That was actually a very intellectual speech. I should appreciate it. And as Mr. Salvador just mentioned on the first day of the conference, that we need more lawyers from the legal community to venture into the field of entrepreneurship for the betterment of the society. I see you as one today. Thanks for the same. Now I would like to put forward two very simple questions. As you said that including your startup, there are multiple other legal services firms which provide services targeting startup entrepreneurs, right? So
Right.
do you have any kind of concession or specific provision in the policies mentioned for such social entrepreneurs?
So when we formed this entire law firm, it's called Startup Lawyers and Partners. The reason we actually formed this law firm is because, in the recent past, while I've worked with the biggest law firms and the biggest deals and the biggest clients, what I've seen is the money always comes from the investor. So when the money is coming from the investor and the promoter founder is in a place where, they don't have much funding or they don't have much power, the advice that we are actually as lawyers are giving is to the investors and not to the promoter founder community. And even businesses who are for profit have actually suffered because, they were at a place where they could not either hire a lawyer, or they could not, they did not know the importance of hiring a lawyer. So it's because in the bigger picture, the promoters and the founders have also faced a lot of problems, is why we started it. And obviously this includes the social entrepreneurial part of it. And as I said in my discussion and in the presentation also today, the outlook and the policy is exactly the same. that if there is a social enterprise or if there is anything that we can help with, what we charge them is what is the base cost for us as a firm. Whatever additional that we add in our quotes for profits and for other charges XYZ, those we will not apply. And the reason we do that is because we know that that is where we are actually making a difference. And if we are getting the bare minimum out of it, it is easier for us to provide that service. Because to be very honest, if I go to provide that service for free, I will be limited to providing it to a single cause or a single person that I know personally. And that is not going to help the world at large. I hope that answers your question.
May I ask one more question to Meenal?
Yes, please.
So, Meenal, great thought and great work. This is Anshav. So, I run a community called Design Your Unicorn for startups and investors. I also run two syndicate funds of my own. One is NFT based fund and one is a trust based fund. So, it's a closed fund. So, what I wanted to know is to understand that you said that you are providing services to investors, and because they are the ones who are paying businesses or ultimately running the businesses from the fund's perspective. So what exactly services which you provide to the investors, and how do you help startups to get these fundings from these investors?
Okay. So to answer your question, thank you, Anshav. Let me clarify. When I say that we hire, like when we are hired by the investor. That means that when there is a transaction happening, wherein in a company there is funding, it can be funding from India, it can be cross-border, the funding coming from outside. If we are hired by the investor, in those cases, yes, we are definitely representing the investors. But in reality, what happens is, if we are, let's say, also representing the promoter, the funds that we get as our fee comes only once the investors have invested in the company. Correct? So what happens in that case, your ultimate client is the investor. Because what happens is the promoter is not separately hiring you. The investor is hiring you, and because the funds may or may not flow from the company, see, how invoicing happens with us is very different from how it is thought of. This is all relating to invoicing. So it is whoever who will hire us, it is who is our client and who we are serving. So if the investor is hiring us and the promoter is also asking us questions around it, then it's not that we are not helping the promoters, but our client remains the investor. And we cannot forget that. And on the other end, I would like to answer your second question. We as lawyers come into the picture when there is legal work involved. We do not connect investors with startups. That is a completely separate, specialization. People do it out there. But what we do is we help companies, founders, promoters set up a structure internally, legally for their company. And we also help them when they have investments coming in. We can have the buyer or the seller or the investor or the promoter. Any one of them can be our clients.
Got it.
That was actually
Thank
an
you so much.
interesting answer, Meena. Riddhi, if you have any questions for Meena.
Yeah.
Riddhi, your video, if you just switch it on.
Yeah, Meenal, actually a question for you. As you said about nominee, so if a person dies and after that there is no nominee, if a person has not appointed any nominee, or there are some things which person keeps secret, like some funds which are kept secret, some policies some policies for the children, some policies for themselves, some medical policies, some insurances. So what about that? If a person has not told anyone, so do you think that the people from that background itself means if I, for example, if I've taken a medical insurance from a particular insurance company, so that insurance company should come forward and find that person and give that money to the person, to his or her nominee who they have not appointed. Because I've seen many cases like that. I've seen that the case which one of my very close friend, actually her dad expired, and after that all the funds and all were they didn't knew about anything. There was no nominee, there was nothing. So like from a very rich class they came to a lower class people. So how can we help them out? Like how can we do something for them?
Sure. Thanks, Riddhi, for your question. And what you are asking me about, to be very honest, it was a very common question for almost all people in the legal community when COVID saw such realities happening around their friends and family. And I'm so sorry for your friend's loss. But there are multiple ways you can go about it. And the reason I say that is because, see, if the information is hidden, I'm very sorry to say you can't do anything about it. Because if you are not aware, even if you want, you cannot, the company that has taken the insurance, they cannot come to you because they themselves will not know if that person has passed away or not. See, the first thing you get when someone passes away is a death certificate. Now, the reason I'm going to the very detailed legality of it is because this is exactly what's going to happen, and everyone's going to ask, be the insurance companies or the medical providers, everyone. So, what happens in such cases is that if you don't provide the death certificate to that company who has provided you an insurance, they will not know that this matter has to be processed. So they don't have that first information, which is why I'm saying that if information is not available to the family, friends, or the people around it, and if it's hidden, it becomes very difficult to do anything, because legal aspect starts with evidence and documentation. So if you don't have evidence, if you don't have documentation, it becomes that difficult to make your case, which is why I say that a will, as difficult it must sound to have a will at even a young age of, let's say, 30. I think post an age of 30 everyone should have a will, because the times we live in, we don't know what is going to impact what, how, and it is our responsibility to take care of our family, of our businesses, and the investments that we have done, so that the people who are left behind us have better futures. And the only way to do it is to be very honest, be as simple as filling out a form and appointing a nominee. That's the simplest thing out there. The second simplest is the will. The third thing that you can do, especially in a friend situation, is that they can make an application to the local SDM officer, where they can take the death certificate, the medical reports, and any other document like ration card or Aadhaar card that they have of the family. So what that person does is he will give you a certificate showing who are the members who are left alive in the family, and basically, as per, considering there's no will, so who are the people who will, next in line, or who are the family members who are alive today? In such situations, what you can do is, if all family members are on board and there's no dispute among the family members, they can take that SDN certificate and the death certificate and the medical records, go to the bank, go to the right institutions, and they can write an application to them saying that these are the documents that we have. We are their, only people who are left, and together we are making an application to access the funds.
Okay.
Because that has legal backing, so it
Yeah.
it mandates the company to take an action.
But don't you think there should be some organization or some uh, way out of there through which, like for example, if you link your Aadhaar,
Yeah.
okay, if you link your Aadhaar, you come to know what all bank accounts and what all history is of your funds. So
Right.
same can be done with all the medical insurances and insurance things as well. So don't you think there should be something like that as well?
So, this is a debatable topic in my own head, I'll be very honest. Uh, for a lot of legal reasons, again. The first legal reason being that if it is a third party, it gives privy to personal matters. It gives privy to that third party. Any organization, can be government, can be private, any organization, it gives privy to them to all the information that is out there about me. Do I want that third party involved? Now, the second legal point that comes from my head, because we also advise companies and startups on data protection and privacy laws, is again the data protection and privacy aspect. Because if all the things are available online, I don't know what their security code is. I don't know what policies they have for, securing my information. And we have to remember, in today's commercial world, everything comes at a cost. So, what is the cost that I am paying for them to put a greater security on the information that I am providing them? And I don't know at the end of the day how easily it can be hacked, how difficult it is to hack, or how can I, sell that in that company, sell that information in the black market. So these factors make it very difficult for me personally to trust a third party out there and get these steps included. What I would actually suggest is a preemptive method, which I find is much more useful, wherein everything is recorded and kept correctly for emergency purposes, which is only available to people when that emergency occurs, which is very similar to how emergency is kicked in any country, including our country. How those emergency provisions are applied, if those things are thought about and those steps are actually included, be it in family structures, be it in business structures, it will have a much greater impact and much simpler way to access it.
That was actually a very clear answer, Meena. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to request the audience to put forward the questions to Meenal and Rajat if you haven't got any. Kirti, Meena, Kakkan, Vanilla,
Hello, ma'am.
Aarti.
This is Subranil here.
Hi,
Hello,
Shubranil.
Meenal, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So my question is, suppose I am forming a social entrepreneurship and it is related to Section 135 Annexure A, any kind of things. For suppose Ganga cleaning project kind of thing. So my question is that I want to attract the funding from corporate, which they contribute by CSR program or scheme.
Right.
And so, is there any approval have to take for any kind of that type of registration I should do for the farm, for my farm, or to receive that kind of grant and any government registration? And also, if it is yes, so what are the criteria should be there? And also, if for this type of creating this type of entrepreneurship, what type of registration should I do for Section 8 registration or Trust Act 1882 or others?
Sure. So, Shubranil, let me answer your first question and the second question together because they're interlinked. See, when it comes to the business, what is the business? That becomes the most important question, because that will help us understand what is it that is right for you in terms of how you should be organized. That's number one. Number two, yes, our funding is definitely available for social entrepreneurs and social enterprises. But again, the process does not change. The reason being is that if you are organized and structured in a way that the kind of funding you're looking for matches the kind of organization or the policies you have, you don't actually have to do much to attract funding, because the market is always looking for good promoters, good founders, good corporate structures, good business models. So it basically, as I said earlier, comes to a competition of how do you aim to get that funding, and what is it that you're offering, and how is it different. Because if any company is going to fund, now let me tell you about a company that we had worked on, and it is in the social sector, and Mahindra was actually thinking of investing in that company. So the process on how they were going through for that company was no different from how any startup would get audited by a future investor. The simple reason is because the kind of company or the kind of portfolio they want is what they are looking for, because they will not change their own model when they are giving you out funding. See, there are companies like Tata. There are a lot of companies who earlier, used to do CSR without there being a CSR by, making parks, public water available, and education to, underprivileged children. There's so many things that are out there. So if you are also doing something and the organization is also doing something, then why should they fund in you? That is always an answer they're looking for. So unless you can answer that for them, they will actually not be interested in any other area also. Because when these funds are looking to invest, they are very specific in what they are looking for. And that is how it goes about.
Right. And for that, what type of registration should I do for like company section 8 or Trust Act 1882?
So as I said earlier, Shubhranil, you will have to first sit and understand how do you want the business to go on, let's say 3 years down the line, but you have to start with 6 months, then 1 month. Once you have that understanding, only then will I be able to advise you on that, because that is dependent on how the structure flows. What is the vision?
Okay. So suppose I form like Keto, and I also want to attract CSR fund and also fund from the crowdfunding. So for that, what I have to do? I have to registration in which way?
So, Shubhranil, it's better if we connect offline and take this forward, because this is a very long conversation and it is a very specific conversation, and I don't want to be taking time for other speakers.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
If you could just share your mail ID in the chat box, and Shubhanil, you could connect with Meenal only and mail her out your queries. She would be very glad to answer it, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to thank Ms. Meenal Madan for her amazing speech, and definitely it was a very concise and elaborated one. Half of our audience sitting here could easily understand. The language was clearly very concise. Appreciate it. Thank you. Now I would like to conclude this conference. If no one has got any more doubts or queries. Any queries from the audience? Okay, that's it. I would like to thank all the speakers on the panels up till today for all the 3 days of the conference, for being active, for being live, and for definitely helping out our attendees with their entrepreneurial problems. And I promise on behalf of my team that we'll be coming back next month on the very same days again, 15, 16, and 17, with a new conference on evolving role of women entrepreneurs in the global economic growth. Our teams are preparing, and there will be former justices as well as global entrepreneurs from different countries coming in. We welcome you again to the conference next month. Until then, take care of yourself, have fun, and enjoy. And yeah, the HRM has shared the certificate registration links in the chat box. All the attendees who want the certificates may kindly fill the links and you shall get it. Speakers or certificates shall be mailed to you post the conference by the HRM officer. Thank you. It was a lovely session.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone. And you might leave. Attendees, carefully just fill out the link. It's important if you want your certificates.